It's Roundup time again. Now that May has come and gone, it's time for the second monthly roundup for Season 6, starting with Episode 7. Well, this is quite the episode to start off with. Newbie Dash has pretty much become the ne'er-do-well of Season 6, receiving the blind rage of many an MLP fan, but here's the thing. Like ne'er-do-well, I actually like Newbie Dash, and I think it's getting a lot more hate than it really deserves. Some have made the argument that Newbie Dash was supposed to be a celebration of Dash achieving her goal, that it was supposed to show her at her best, not her worst. But honestly, I prefer it as is. It might just be me, but I don't think an episode that just goes, "Woo, Rainbow Dash is a Wonderbolt" for 20 minutes makes for an interesting story. I mean, look at Canterlot Boutique. In that episode, Rarity achieved her goal of opening her own boutique, but was it smooth sailing after that? No, she still had hurdles to jump and obstacles to overcome, and that conflict made the episode interesting. Then there's the criticism that Rainbow shouldn't have been that bad on her first day, which, again, I disagree with. Rainbow's been known to let her emotions affect her performance, so who's to say that the initial excitement of being on the team kept her from performing at 100%? And yeah, Rainbow had to be very talented to get on the Wonderbolts, but so did every other pony on that team, and they all have more experience than her. I went through the same thing when I started art school. Yeah, I had talent and I was good compared to my classmates in high school, but then I was put in an environment where everyone was a talented artist, and I realized just how far behind I was. When you're a talented person put in a room with other talented people, you're all on the same playing field. You're not special anymore. At least not as much as you used to be. Then there's the claim that the Wonderbolts were too hard on Dash, but were they really? The Wonderbolts are shown to be a pseudo-military type of entity, and if that's the case, is it really all that surprising that their behavior towards rookies is the way that it is? Hell, if you ask me, I think they could have been a lot worse. On top of that, Rainbow was only making things worse for herself after the initial teasing. Every attempt to redeem herself only exacerbated the issue, and if she had just taken the L and shook off the name calling, things wouldn't have gotten as bad as they did. I'm not surprised at Rainbow's reaction though. I mean, look at the environment she's usually in. As Starlight said in the previous episode, Ponyville is the friendliest place in Equestria. Rainbow's surrounded by good vibes and positive reinforcement, and while that did help with her confidence, it's also made her soft. The closest thing Rainbow has to a tough friend is Applejack, but while she can be brutally honest, she only gets that way when it's necessary. Rainbow Dash has never had someone bust her chops like the Wonderbolts did. They are the only characters that have ever been tough on her like this, and for the profession that she wants, Rainbow Dash has to toughen up. And now we wait for the obligatory "you condone bullying because you defended the Wonderbolts in this episode" comments. Lastly, this episode actually has Rainbow making up for her reckless actions, something that people constantly complain about when it comes to Dash episodes. So if anything, you can at least give the episode credit for that. Okay, I've talked about this long enough. Condensed version, people are overreacting to Newbie Dash. Next, Episode 8. Another poorly timed Christmas episode, and not even a year after we got our first one. Okay, I really wasn't feeling this episode when it first started out. The first Heartswarming Eve episode was cool because it was an original story that also shed some light on Equestria's history, but early on this episode showed that it was just gonna be another retelling of A Christmas Carol, a story that's been run into the ground God knows how many times with varying results. At this point, when an episode defaults to retelling an old story like this, it has to do either one of two things. Either put enough of a twist on the story to make it feel somewhat unique, or at least have some really good songs to keep it from being a total bore. Thankfully, A Heartwarming Tale did the latter, and I walked away feeling entertained. However, I have to acknowledge that the songs are the only thing this episode has going for it. Yes, it was meant to be a musical, but at the same time, if the only thing a musical has to offer is catchy music and not much else, is it really that much to write home about? Some of the most iconic musicals aren't recognized for the music alone. They're also recognized for their charming characters and their memorable stories. Unless it's an album where the only thing being offered is music, songs shouldn't be the only noteworthy thing about a piece of media. If you like the songs, then you'll find some enjoyment in this episode like I did. But if you've never cared for MLP's music selection, A Heartwarming Tale doesn't have much to offer. Episode 9. When it was confirmed that we'd be revisiting Rarity's Manhattan boutique, I was really looking forward to this episode, and thankfully, it didn't disappoint. The framing device for this episode's story was one that MLPs never used before, and with what we got, I'm wondering why it took them this long. While cutaway humor can easily devolve into pointless gags, this episode managed to keep the focus on the issue at hand and have some great laughs on top of that. I've heard the criticism that this episode's lesson contradicts the lesson of Castle Sweet Castle because Rarity's friends did things their way and succeeded, but if you ask me, Castle Sweet Castle is an entirely different kind of scenario, and thus the lesson learned there doesn't apply here. The goal in Castle Sweet Castle was to make Twilight's living space feel more like a home, someplace where she'd feel comfortable, and because of that they made decisions with her tastes in mind because this was a personal project. The Saddle Row Review is completely different. While Rarity's boutiques have a certain aesthetic to them that reflects their owner, the main goal was to get a business venue ready for its opening night. They had jobs like pest control, hiring employees, and organizing inventory. And for those kinds of tasks, it's not important how it gets done, but rather that it gets done, period, because there's an objective to reach and a limited amount of time to do so. Castle Sweet Castle dealt with personalizing a home with the residents' taste in mind. The Saddle Row Review dealt with accomplishing tasks and basic problem solving, so a different approach had to be taken. With that being said, this was a great episode, and it's probably my favorite of the month. And last but not least, we have episode 10. I always get nervous when an AJ episode comes out because, unlike Rarity, Best Pony's track record for solo episodes hasn't been very consistent. Applejack's Day Off was a very middle-of-the-road episode for me. I enjoyed a lot of it, but at the same time, it's also painfully obvious that they were just settling with this one. The dialogue felt very simple, as though we were being read the outline of a script rather than the final product. The humor started off strong, but it lost a lot of its momentum halfway through, and while the ending moral is one of my favorites of this season, the way it was handled felt obligatory. Like the writers were saying, yeah, so there's a moral to this because there always is, so here you go. It's like when you see someone do pretty okay at something, but you know that's not what they're really capable of. What they gave was passable, sure, but you can tell that they just settled for that and didn't push. It's one of those episodes where I'd only rewatch the first half and just skip the rest. And with the lesson it had to offer, that's kind of a shame, really. So that does it for the second monthly roundup for season 6, and it was a pretty solid month with 2 good episodes and 2 okay episodes. Because of the upcoming mid-season hiatus, June's roundup will only have 2 episodes to cover, and depending on how much I'll have to say on the second episode, that video might be on the short side, but I'm looking forward to it regardless. So what are your thoughts on this month's season 6 episodes? Swarm that comment section below or bug me on social media, and consider supporting me through Patreon or PayPal art commissions. Until next time, keep it sketchy, folks.